Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. And today I have brought you the same book, Earthquake by Ruskin Bond, Part 2. So, in the last video, I told you that one morning while grandfather was having his bath, the town seemed suddenly very still and quiet. So, this is what happened next. The first tremors. Grandfather didn't notice anything because he was splashing about and singing. But grandmother, who was in the garden trimming her rose bushes, paused her work and looked up. Why were the birds silent all of a sudden? Not only the birds in the trees, but the birds in the henhouse too. And the goat had stopped nibbling at the grass. And the dog, who had been yapping at a squirrel on a wall, sat down quietly, ears back, head between his paws. Now, isn't that funny? Said grandmother, aloud. I wonder what. And then the opposite happened. The hens began crackling, the dogs barking, and the birds shrieking and flapping their wings. The crows in the neighborhood all took wing, winging widely overhead and cawing loudly. The chickens flapped around in circles as if they were being chased. Two cats sitting on the wall suddenly jumped up and disappeared in different directions. Grandmother had read somewhere that animals sense the approach of an earthquake much quicker than humans. And true enough, within half a minute of her noticing the noise made by the animals, she heard a rattling, rumbling sound like the approach of an express train. The noise increased for a minute, and then there was the first trembling of the ground. The animals by this time all seemed to have gone mad and were making a hideous noise. Treetops slashed backwards and forwards, doors banged and windows shook, and grandmother said later that the house actually swayed in front of her. She had difficulty in standing straight, although she admitted that this may have been due to more the trembling of her knees than to the trembling of the ground. This first shock lasted only about half a minute, but it seemed much longer. Grandmother realized that grandfather was in his bath, that Rakesh was on his way to school, that Mukesh was playing marbles with Mumtaz's son, and that Dolly was under the staircase busy with her doll's house. Mumtaz would be in the kitchen washing vegetables. Grandmother rushed indoors to fetch Dolly, and as she did so, the rumble grew louder. Grandfather did not hear it because he was still singing, but grandmother heard it, and so did Dolly, who noticed that her doll's house was beginning to totter. Along with the rumble, Mumtaz heard the rattle of the crockery. A teapot slithered off the sideboard and fell to the floor in pieces. In the sitting room, an antique vase, 300 years old according to grandfather, leaped off the mantelpiece and crashed into the ground. When Dolly felt the first tremor, she instinctively crawled under the well of the staircase, dragging her favorite doll with her. The doll's hair had long since come out, and so had one eye, but Dolly had the doll a long time and felt she needed special care and attention. She couldn't understand why the house was shaking, but she wasn't afraid. House just shook sometimes, she supposed. Grandmother did not see her under the staircase and dashed into the drawing room, calling, Dolly, Dolly, where are you? The clock on the wall went crazy and began striking all hours. In the kitchen, Mumtaz was trying to catch plates, glasses, and dishes as they sprang madly from the shelves. Mukesh had lost all his marbles and not in a game with his friends. They had rolled out of the gate and down the road and then disappeared into the ground where a number of fissures had appeared. Grandfather stopped singing when he found he couldn't manage high notes. He noticed that his bathtub was almost empty. Surely he hadn't splashed so much. He reached for the mug, but he couldn't find it. He started getting out of the tub, but the tub itself rose up and pitched him on the ground and flooded on the flooded bathroom floor. A ghost! Exclaimed grandfather. There's a mischievous ghost here, playing tricks with the tub. He grabbed his towel, wrapped around his waist, and then flung open the bathroom door and dashed onto the landing. By that time, the first earthquake tremor was over. Rakesh was halfway to school when he found his cycle swerving about on the road, out of his control. He almost collided with a bullock cart. He dismounted to see if the cycle chain had jammed. He found the road was as unsteady as the bicycle. But this sensation lasted for just a few seconds. Everything was steady again. Strangely, though, the bullocks were refusing to move on. Did you feel that? Asked the cart driver. Yes, everything was shaking, said Rakesh. Was it an earthquake? A small one, said the driver, or the start of a big one. Rakesh rode on to school. The bell had yet to ring for classes, and the field was a ferment of excitement as the assembled boys and girls stood around in groups, talking about the shock that had just been felt. The headmaster had decided that just in case there was another tremor, the children would be safer out in the open than in the rather ancient school building. And so he delayed the ringing of the assembly bell. Naturally, the children were delighted at the delay. But when nothing further happened after 15 minutes, the headmaster decided it was time for school. There were groans of protest, followed by calls for a holiday. Rakesh was the spokesman for his class. Sir, you gave us a holiday last year when the roof blew off. But the roof hasn't blown off, observed the headmaster. What if the walls fall down, sir? When the wall falls down, we'll think of a holiday, snapped the headmaster. Now into the class, all of you.